Hello, this is Alex, welcome to Boomstick Gaming, and today I want to show off some of the most epic, over-the-top, and unusual boss fights you'll likely see all year, which just so happen to be in Phantasy Star Online 2. If you're a skill-based, boss-hunting focused action RPG junkie like myself, you're definitely not going to want to skip this one. This video has been sponsored by Sega, and after you hear my thoughts on it, if you want to play Phantasy Star Online 2 completely for free, the fair kind of free to play by the way, you can use that link at the top of the video description to give it a download on PC, Windows 10, or Xbox One. I started playing PSO2 about 1 month ago now, and although I did play PSO1 back in the day on GameCube, mostly in 4-player split screen where each person had like 7 pixels to see, I was honestly not expecting to get addicted all over again with the sequel that launched this year in the US. What easily impressed me the most about PSO2 were the great boss battles and the core combat mechanics around them, which is why I chose to focus this entire overview primarily around showing both of them off. In most RPGs, JRPGs, and MMOs, bosses usually have a specific type of mechanic they all adhere to, like for example plopping down red AoE warning circles on the ground you have to avoid, rinse and repeat, but here in PSO2, that is just one of dozens of gameplay mechanics a boss can actually throw at you, sometimes quite literally. Some might require you to avoid huge level sweeping attacks, make you dodge aerial bombardments, have you jump on a turret for a while, avoid temporary entrapment, exploit and cut off specific weak points, switch to an on-rails shooter out of pretty much nowhere, physically have to travel across the boss itself to attack it, or like this dude who requires you to finish him off before you get blown up by the moon, that yes, he did throw down at you. What makes these fights so memorable is the fact that it feels like all of the creative restraints were completely removed from the dev team, allowing them to truly make whatever absolutely absurd, WTF-style boss and enemy designs they could possibly fathom. For example, "Oh hey Jim, do you have a minute? I have a boss fight idea I want to run by you." "Oh hey there, Better Jim. Yeah, go ahead, let's hear it." So this one is a giant warship that fires missile barrages and lasers at the player while they have to advance through enemy groups of evil steamrollers and possessed T-Rexes until they finally reach the warship, to where they then have to destroy all the guns on it while fending off a floating green captain who fires missiles, to then having the warship take to flight as the player has to enter a mech with its own unique moveset and set of skills to be able to combat the warship's oncoming laser lawnmower attacks, to then finally reward the player for their accomplishment by giving them one of our patented red crystal piñatas filled with loot. So, what do you think? I honestly kind of just tuned out there for a while there, Better Jim. Sure, yeah, approved, let's do it. Facetious analogy aside, the unorthodox and unpredictable over-the-top nature of these boss battles are exactly the descriptors you want when you're playing an action game as a character with a sword the size of their body. The easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master core combat, along with the creative variety to all these bosses, makes it a treat every time you take on a new one, since you will never in a million years be able to predict what it might happen to look like, or how it's going to try to kill you this time. Although the game starts out somewhat simple, having to kill some grunt units through some fairly straightforward levels, don't make any misconceptions from the intro hours. The main meat of PSO2 is primarily all about taking on these epic boss fights and looking cool while doing it. I'm definitely not one that's easily impressed by boss battles, since the majority of my all-time favorite games have what is regarded to be some of the best examples of them of all time, and I can say with pure certainty, at this point in 2020, this is easily the most fun I've had with any boss fights all year, and I love the raw creativity oozing from their overall designs. If I still have you here after my gushing about one of my favorite elements in gaming, boss battles, let's briefly dive into some of the other elements that make up Phantasy Star Online 2. First, you can dual class in this. I chose Hunter Fighter, kind of a straightforward melee boy, but it keeps me right up in the mix where I want to be. Some of the other class options are the Ranger and Gunner, which play totally different, more like third-person shooters. Then you have the Braver, which is somewhat of a hybrid between ranged and melee. There is the Bouncer, who can use some pretty cool jet boots and provide some support for the team. There is the Force and Techer, which are the ranged magic attackers and healers. Then ending with the Summoner, who can utilize a pet companion to do most of the fighting for them. These can all be mixed and matched in various ways to build out your character, along with the 4 different races being the humans, Numans, Caste, and Dooman, which all have different statistical biases for those who truly want to min-max. All of the missions you'll be going on are initiated in the hub town and then instance-based while you're out on the field, but you can bring in or actively recruit online players, bring some AI companions, or just go it solo. The main progression revolves around leveling up your character, of course, gaining different and better tiered gear for them, and also evolving your mag, which is that thing floating right next to me, which changed into its current form based on what items I chose to feed it. This guy I mostly just fed melee weapons and got this kind of spiky look. These mags can give you bonus stats and also provide access to big special attacks once they reach their higher levels. But again, bringing it all full circle, these boss fights are your fuel for your action RPG engine, which is your prime motivation for advancing all of those other core elements, except for maybe cosmetics. Those are purely just to show off. Sponsorship opportunity aside, speaking bluntly, Phantasy Star Online 2 is now my personal favorite free-to-play game on the market, which is saying a lot because I'm a huge stickler when it comes to how free-to-play style games are handled. Also, I tend to skew away from games with a more aggro community and lean more towards the ones with a more jolly community. And to give a few examples of PSO2, there are periodic live concerts people are always attending in town, and when you resurrect someone, you get a fun currency that can be used to unlock cosmetics. A currency called fun for helping teammates. Awesome. This definitely gets the Boomstick Gaming recommend if you like action RPGs and the concept of taking on bigger and bigger bosses to amass better gear to do it all even better. For those of you who are a little competitive, you can test your skills against other players in PSO2's PvP mode, and there is also a full single-player story campaign to take on as well. The big Episode 5 content drop just went live recently, adding in a new narrative arc with new areas and mechanics, along with raising the player level cap, adding in a unique late-game character class, and a few other cool new additions. Again, like I mentioned at the start of the video, if you're interested in giving this a try, use that link in the top of the video description to play PSO2 entirely for free on Steam, Windows 10, and Xbox One. My character is playing on the FIO server, so say hi if you happen to spot me hanging around. I'm also currently working on a new player guide for Phantasy Star Online 2 as well, formulating all I've learned over the last month of playing into one concise video of useful gameplay and progression tips, so consider sticking around on the channel if you want to see that in a week or two. A special thanks to Sega for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video, and for being that little nudge I needed to finally go play this, because I honestly got a bit more addicted to it than what I was expecting. I appreciate you giving this video a watch, I had fun making it, and as always, this has been Alex from Boomstick Gaming, and I'll be seeing you next time.